PO 6363, LaRoderick McMullen versus Kelly Wilkinson Greer. Mr. McMullen is represented by Ms. Feynman Sowers, and Ms. Greer is represented by Attorney Trishelle Simmons. This case was continued from the last court date by the consent of the parties. It was initially only filed as LaRoderick McMullen versus Kelly Wilcoxon Greer. And at this point, the petitioner today has filed an amended petition to be on behalf of the minor child in this case. And I am still let me look at that. And I understand per the parties' earlier announcements that the respondent is consenting to that modification or the amendment of the petition and to go forward on that at this time. Is that right, Ms. Simmons?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay. And before we get started, one other thing I need to understand. So there is a final divorce order in place, otherwise addressing custody. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And has, just for the record, has anything been filed in that case regarding custody or modification at this time?
No.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Is there a reason that nothing has been filed?
My client was advised to file this. He's gotten the paperwork together. We do need to, I'm trying to find him counsel who could do this on a low bono basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure there's no other, because obviously that, so what I'm going to tell the parties is, since they have not reached an agreement, we are going to have the hearing today. And what I'm going to do is to determine whether by a preponderance of the evidence, whether an act of violence has occurred, again, family violence has occurred against the petitioner by the respondent, and whether there's a reasonable likelihood of future acts occurring such that an order of protection is necessary. This hearing is, and the order is a temporary extreme solution as needed for intervention, and is not to circumvent existing custody orders, and this court will not be used in such a manner. So what I'm going to do is just be looking through that narrow lens about whether an act of family violence has been committed by the respondent against the petitioner, and whether there's a reasonable likelihood of future acts of family violence being committed. And I will take into account all evidence presented by all the parties and any credibility and witness testimony and all of that, and make a decision by a preponderance of the evidence in this case. So at this point, the petitioner's attorney, since it's the petitioner's motion, the petitioner gets to go first. And then the respondent's attorney will be able to cross-examine any witnesses and evidence the petitioner presents, and then the respondent will be able to present any evidence and testimony they wish to, and the respondent, the petitioner's attorney will be able to cross-examine any evidence and witnesses that are presented by the respondent. Okay? So at this point, Ms. Feynman Sowers, you may call and swear your first witness.
Your Honor, just as a preliminary matter, during the breakout section, Ms. Simmons did indicate that the respondent has filed an abandonment petition, which I believe also is seeking relief with respect to custody or termination of my client's parental rights.
Well, an abandonment, no, that's usually a failure to pay child support.
Okay.
Not supporting your child within the past 6 months. That is a criminal matter and is not addressed by this court at this time.
Okay. The other preliminary matter, I intend to call as my first witness the minor child, and I ask that the court, in order to protect the best interests of the child and her privacy, that her testimony be in camera.
Okay, and how old is the minor child?
16.
Okay, and so if the parties agree, I can speak to her privately in a breakout room, or I can, do you agree to that, Ms. Simmons?
Your Honor, I mean, because of her age, we would like to cross-examine her. So I understand you want to speak to her privately, but we would like to.
The other option is, and I think I had a case that almost went to hearing that was doing that today, is that we do it in the breakout room with the attorneys and don't do it on the record in public.
That's what we would prefer, Your Honor.
Okay, so we will do that. We'll put all of us in a breakout room and go forward in that manner. Okay.
Okay.
So we will do that now. Attorneys, and let me say this is the reason these custody, some judges don't even hear the minor children in the temporary protective orders. This child is a little bit older. It can be very traumatizing to the minor child to testify in front of parents and be cross-examined in front of parents. So I don't do this lightly. Are y'all asking that the parties be present in the breakout room with the children when the child is testifying? Hold on, ma'am. Attorneys?
My client doesn't need to be present. I think that this child is doesn't have any concerns about that, so I don't have any objections if Ms. Simmons wants her client to be present.
Okay, well, and I'm just saying the idea of the child testifying in front of her parents almost defeats the in-camera purpose. But Ms. Simmons, what is your request? What is your response if you're there to question the person?
If I'm there to question her, Your Honor, we don't have a problem with her, not my client not being present. I mean, we wish she didn't have to testify, but
I understand. Okay.
we're here now, so there's not much we can do about it.
All right. And is anybody invoking the rule of sequestration at this time?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Okay, so any parties and their witnesses are not to speak to each other about their testimony. No one should be watching the YouTube live stream while waiting to testify, and not discuss any part of the case or their testimony prior to taking the stand. And virtually no one should be within earshot of anyone else and to be able to hear any testimony that is given. Okay. So all right, at this point, Ms. Goodman, will you place the attorneys and myself and
Call Mr. McMullen, the petitioner. Mr.
you may.
McMillan, the testimony you're about to provide to the court today, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that your testimony will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay. And could you please state the relationship between you and Ms. Greer, the respondent?
She's my ex-wife and the mother of my child.
Okay. And you're referring to
Lariah, my brother.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are you when were you divorced?
2013.
Okay. Okay. What I'd like to focus on is on June 15th. Did you receive a call from your daughter on that date?
Yes, I received a call from my daughter probably 1 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. And what did you do after receiving that call?
I listened to what was going on in the background, a lot of yelling and screaming. My daughter asked me to come pick her up, and her mother in the background yelling and screaming.
Could you make out what her mother was saying?
Just yelling some obscenities and call that bro, I'll get you. A lot of along the lines of those words being said.
Okay.
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 Just a lot of obscenities.
Okay. Did you hear her making any threats at that time, or did you hear?
Yes, she made threats on me and my daughter's life that she'll get us killed.
And you heard this while you were on the phone with your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know it was your ex-wife making those threats?
Because I recognize her voice.
Okay.
It's a very distinctive voice.
Okay. And after hearing this, what did you do?
I got up. I was basically still trying to calm my daughter down to de-escalate the situation. That maybe it's not as bad as it seemed, that she's just upset right now, but it continues to escalate and escalate.
Okay. So did you go pick your daughter up?
Yes, I didn't feel safe at first. I told them to just bring her to the Quick Trip on Wesley Chapel in Decatur, Georgia. And I sat up there probably like, maybe 5 or 10 minutes waiting and receiving calls from Miss Greer and her husband, Mr. Greer, just being belligerent and just like, I'm out of control. And I'm asking them, just bring me my daughter. And that's all I realized. And after me having to sit there, I eventually just go to their neighborhood to go and pick up my daughter.
Okay. And when you said go to their neighborhood, did you go to the respondent's home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you got there, what happened?
A lot of obscenities was being yelled towards the vehicle, and I didn't respond. I just was there to get my daughter. That's it.
Okay. So who was making the obscenities?
Miss Greer was yelling us.
So if you could please provide a little bit more detail. You came to the home. Did you get out of your car? You stayed in your car?
I stayed in my vehicle. I didn't even pull in her driveway. I turned around. I went down the street and turned around so I could get my daughter and leave. Okay.
Did you watch your daughter leave the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And as she was leaving, did Ms. Greer try to prevent her from leaving?
I can't really remember if she did. It was more of just shoving at her and cussing at her and yelling a lot of more obscenities that broke. Just a bunch of that being yelled and them having to physically hurt her husband and her son's girlfriend, having to restrain her from.
When you say her, restrain who?
Kelly Greer had to be restrained by her husband and her son's girlfriend.
And this all occurred outside of the home within your sight?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Was Ms. Greer trying to break away from them?
Yep. Just a lot of like trying to just be more aggressive, just like get off of me, just trying to get to the car.
Okay. And was your daughter able to get in your car?
Yes, he was.
Okay. At that time, did you hear Ms. Greer make any threats as your daughter was leaving the house, entering into your car?
Well, when she was entering into the car, she continued to yell more obscenities and yells. Knocked off. That was her tone with us.
Okay. And she said that as your daughter was getting into the car?
Yes.
Okay. Did you happen to observe whether or not she had a weapon?
No, I couldn't tell.
And what was your daughter's demeanor when all this was going on?
Just upset, just shaking. At this time, it's like 3 in the morning, and she had been at practice all day, so she was up. She was visibly shaking, upset.
Okay. Was she? What was her emotional state?
She was just, like I said, she was very upset. Just that this happened. You know, it was just very traumatic. She was just
Was she
upset about it.
crying?
Yes, she was.
So she was crying and she was shaking?
Yep. And just me just trying to be like, it's gonna be okay, and her saying that it's not, because this is my mom doing this to me.
Okay. And do you believe that she was afraid to be around her mom at that time?
Very much so.
Okay. And what I want to talk to you about what happened in July. Did you drive your daughter over to her mother's house on July 4th?
Yes, I did.
And why did you do that?
Because my daughter was trying to get some of her things and her check that she had been withheld from for about 2 weeks. And I was a little apprehensive, but me thinking like maybe it died down some. And that's why I took my daughter to pick up her things and her check.
Okay. And what time did you arrive at the respondent's home?
At 5 o'clock, we was prompted to be there. Y'all can come at 5.
Okay.
By her mother. Her mother texted her and said, yeah, y'all can come at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
On the phone.
And all right. So you brought your daughter to the home, and did you remain at the home?
Yes, I remained
waiting for your daughter?
Yes, I parked on the curb.
Okay. And how long was your daughter in the house?
I don't know, probably about 5 minutes.
Okay. And after you saw her go into the home?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see her come out of the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Before she came out of the home, did you have any interactions with Ms. Greer?
Yes, I did. She came out to, almost out to the car, telling some, come on, let's talk. And I could see that she had been drinking, and I knew that it wasn't a good time for, because her family was there. It was the 4th of July. I didn't feel like it was a safe, environment to talk to her about whatever had happened on June 15th. So I said, no, this isn't the right time to have this conversation. And she goes on and she starts to yell obscenities. And by this time, her son had came from the back, from around their house, and some people, her sister and some of her auntie, I think her auntie pulled up in the driveway at the time that all of this is starting to occur. And they have to physically drag her into her home, because at this time she's yelling, you punk mother, gonna take my daughter, I done raised her, and all of this stuff. So they have to basically drag her into the house. So I'm at this time, my daughter, when they get her into the house, my daughter comes out of the house, with them pouring behind her, and that's when it really escalated to the physical altercation, where her mom pushes her brother on, like, get her, and he literally pushes her and grabs her by her purse strap and starts dragging her. And at this time I respond, because I'm seeing my daughter attacked. So I step out of the car, as I get overwhelmed and to step towards the situation. So I step out of the car, and at this time he's made eye contact with me. He's yelling, yeah,
Who is he?
Kamar Wilcoxon. At the time, he starts yelling, yeah, motherfucker, this is what I've been waiting on, as he's dragging my daughter by her purse strap. That is a video that it may only be a snippet of it, but the video is shot from inside of the car, where it shows where all of this starts, where her mother pushes him. Kelly Wilcoxon Greer pushes Kamar Wilcoxon to get his sister, and he starts to attack her. Once I step out of the car, he starts dragging her, like, yeah. So by this time, he releases her, pushes her like kind of to the ground, and start coming towards me. At this time, my wife is yelling, get back in the car, blowing the horn. So I get back in the car. By this time, they had almost made it. They made it to the car. And this
Who is they?
Kelly Wilcoxon Greer and Kamar Wilcoxon made it to the car, and that's when they start jaking on the door, shaking the car. Miss Kelly Wilcoxon Greer kicks the vehicle, and as you can see in the second video, where they tried to send half of the video from their ring footage to say that Lariah was the aggressor, which it really shows as it all transpired. As you can tell, my story says where he drug her and then he released her because he reacted to me getting out of the car. By this time, they're at our vehicle, which that's what the second video showed, where that video has been altered and cut in half to show.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. McMillan, but nobody's introduced a video at this point.
I got you.
So I just want you to talk about what you observed.
What I observed. Okay, and
Yeah.
what I observed from this point on, them coming to the car, kicking and attacking the car. My daughter gets up and she's upset, rightfully, and hits her brother. That's when they still are at the car, and it's an altercation away from the car, and Miss Greer is yelling, "Yeah, drag that bitch out too." She's talking to my wife, saying, "Drag her out the car." Like they're really trying to incite us to react to the negative stuff that's going on. And what I viewed is it kept getting volatile and volatile. They returned back to the car, shaking it and all of that, yelling obscenity. So we have to pull away from the curve, because by now my wife is hysterical, upset, rightfully so. And we pulled down the street to the entrance gate of the community, and Miss Greer Wilcox and Miss Kelly Greer, she was running, chasing the vehicle, her and her son. And this is when we had to actually pull out of the neighborhood. So we pulled out of the neighborhood. Security, I didn't see this part, but security stepped in, and my daughter was able to get to the vehicle.
Okay, and so Ms. Greer and her son were, after shaking your car, kicking your car, you drove off. They ran down the street after your car?
Yeah.
What were they saying anything at that time?
I mean, at that time I couldn't hear it, but I was just trying to separate from the situation.
Okay, and where was your daughter when this was happening?
She was actually, at this time, she was being held by his Kamar Wilcoxon's girlfriend, which is one of the witnesses. She was being held and prohibited from getting away from him.
Okay, and Kamar is her brother, correct?
Yes, Kamar is her brother. And
Okay.
he's 20 years old.
And he's 20 years old. Okay. And then after you pulled away from the home to get away from Ms. Greer and her son, what happened after that?
We was on the outside of the community, and Lariah gets away from them, and we go to call the police. We're no longer in their neighborhood, but we're just outside of their neighborhood, and we call 911.
Okay. And what was your daughter's demeanor at this time?
She's just upset. She's very upset, shaking, crying. It's just, it was tough to see that.
Okay.
It really was.
Okay. And how long has she been residing with you?
She's been with me since June the 15th, the night that she was put out.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was she ever put out of her mother's home before that?
Yes, she was. She was put out of her home in November of 2022.
Okay.
I picked my daughter up from, I don't know if it was school or cheerleading, but it all revolves around cheerleading anyway. But I picked her up and I dropped her off, and no longer than I can get out of her neighborhood and go up the streets, probably not even a quarter of a mile. I was receiving a call from Kelly Greer saying, "You can come get this little."
Okay. And what are your concerns if your daughter were to not have an order of protection? Right now I can't say that I trust Miss Kelly Greer, with the safety of my child, for what she allowed to occur and what she encouraged. And she since that day, she hasn't apologized. She has been belligerent through different terms, different avenues. She's called my daughter's coaches, and she's assassinated my character, saying that my daughter, doesn't deserve
Objection.
She doesn't
Yes,
deserve
what's your objection? Hold on, sir, hold on. What's your objection?
He was about to testify as to what Ms. Greer was saying to someone else who's not a party to this case.
So is your objection hearsay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Feynman-Sowers, what is your response?
I don't, there's no exception to the hearsay rule, and I'm aware of, with respect to what was being communicated to the school coaches.
Okay, so I will sustain the objection as to hearsay as to what other people said outside Mr. McMullen's presence.
Mr.
What I can say.
Sir, hold on. Let your attorney ask a question, and then you can answer it, okay? And she may rephrase it or say something else, all right?
Okay.
Do you fear for your daughter's safety if there were not an order of protection in place?
I do.
Okay. And what's your basis for believing that?
Well, I believe that because since this incident occurred, she has went to all measures to try to. She has assassinated my daughter's character, taking her out of her school activities, and just trying to affect her overall life. So, along with that and the verbal threats that have been made and acted on, I can't say that I do feel safe with her having contact or the ability to go to her school. And
has your daughter mentioned to you any times that her mother's been physically abusive to her?
Other than just not that I can recall, but just being very derogatory in her treatment and her talk, the ways that she talks to her. And it's never a time that my daughter does. She's a teenager, not saying that she's perfect from anything, but it doesn't just stop with her. It's her being attacked and saying, "You ain't gonna be shit like your daddy, you gonna be broke." That's the constant in her tone. Every time that she's talked, I've heard her say that a number of times, and I have asked her to not talk to our daughter like that, but she feels that she's a child. I can talk to her however I want to. That has always been her response.
Okay. do you have any reason to believe that what your daughter has told you about the acts of physical violence are not the truth?
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that because her mother is a real hostile person and very aggressive, because I have dealt with it, and in no hostile way have I returned any hostility towards her, but it still seems to keep rising. It still seems to be a hostility.
Okay. Do you know your daughter? How about it? Do you know your daughter to be truthful, or is she just generally prone to lying? Do you know
She's pretty truthful. You know, I don't. It is. She doesn't lie to me. You know, we have a pretty open relationship that she can talk to me, and even when it's things that I don't want to hear, you know, I receive them and I respond in a way that is going to be beneficial for us both. Not for me just to, not to say that she hasn't told me some things that I don't agree with, or think that you know what I'm saying, you may be looking at it in a different way. But when it comes to her mother and her treatment, I don't think that she's stretching or fabricating the truth about that.
Okay. All right. Other than the acts of the obscenities, the verbal threats, and the physical altercations that you observed on June 15th and July 4th, have you observed any other acts by the respondent against your daughter?
No.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
All right, Ms. Simmons, you may cross-examine.
Thank you. Mr. McMullen, how would you describe your relationship with Mrs. Greer?
From my end, I have respected her in her marriage. From her, it's been very, very disrespectful and derogatory at every turn. Every time that she can cuss me out or tell me, "Oh, that little child support you ain't paying ain't." Like, interaction with her is always, she's always like she's better. Like I'm.
Okay, so you would say you all don't have a good relationship, is that correct?
I mean, I don't have a problem with her. I don't have a problem with her. I don't know what her problem is with me, but she has one with me. Okay.
All right. So it's your testimony. Oh, I don't know why my battery light is going off on this computer, because it's plugged in. I'm sorry about that. That just caught me off guard because plugged in. I'm like, why?
All right, let us know if you need to do anything.
Okay. I think it's showing that it's plugged in. I don't know. So
does it show you're plugged in on the bottom right and the little plug part? Or is it showing a battery?
It's showing that it's the battery's charging. So
okay, great. Okay.
I don't know. And it's saying 96%. All right, sorry about that.
No problem. Go ahead.
So, Mr. McMullen, when Miss Greer called you and told you to come get Lariah, or did Lariah call you and tell you to come get her?
I received
on June 5th.
I received a call from both of them and my mother. I received a call from Lariah, and I thought maybe it's just a teen overreacting. And then I received a call from her mother, and then I received a call from my mother hysterically saying that she done attacked that girl. She told me she got a gun.
I'm just asking you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So yes, you did talk to Miss Greer on that day, and she told you to come get Lariah. Did she prevent you in any way from?
This is. She didn't just tell me to come. She didn't just tell me to come get her. She told me, come. This little bitch can't be in my house no more. That's exactly what she said.
So she was upset, correct?
Yeah.
Was Lariah upset?
Yes.
Was Lariah yelling?
They both were yelling.
Okay. And did Lariah tell you that she had damaged property inside her mother's home?
No.
Did Lariah tell you that she had thrown a 10-pound dumbbell in her mother's home?
No.
Did Lariah tell you that her and Miss Greer were engaging in an altercation?
She told me that her mother attacked her.
Did she tell you why?
No.
Did she tell you that she had hit her mother in the head?
No. From well, she told me the attack came from her mother attacking her and keeping her mother off of her is how that knot got on her head.
Did you ask Miss Greer how the altercation occurred?
She wasn't, you know, it wasn't a time that you could talk to her.
Okay, so that's a no.
No, I'm saying I couldn't. It's not a no that I didn't talk to her, but it was a no that I couldn't get through to her because she was angry.
So you don't know why Mrs. Greer was angry.
I do have some reason why she might be upset.
Okay, but she didn't tell you.
No.
Okay.
No,
and when you arrived at the house, and Lariah got in the car and you all left, correct?
Yeah, after being cursed out and yelled at, threatened.
All right. Okay, I understand.
Kelly Greer.
Okay, and a few days later, Lariah went to Florida with her mother, correct?
No, she did not.
She didn't go to.
No, she did not.
She didn't go with Miss Greer?
No, she did not.
Would you be surprised to know that Lariah just testified that she was alone in a hotel room with Miss Greer for 5 days while she was at cheerleading camp? You wouldn't be surprised?
Lariah didn't go. The incident that you're talking about, Lariah went to cheer camp before that happened. That incident that you're speaking of, ma'am, it happened on the heels of her coming back from cheer camp.
Okay, because Lariah testified that she went to cheer camp between that June 15th date and July 4th date. She actually said they got back 8 days before July 4th. Does that help your recollection a little bit?
Well, to me, what I didn't, I knew that she went to camp, but Lariah was forced to. If she went to camp with her mother, she was forced to go to camp with her mother.
You're saying if?
No, I'm saying yes. I'm saying if, because
Sir, I just need you to say whether. No, stop. You answer yes, no, or maybe. If you don't know if she went to cheer camp or not, you are free to say I don't know and explain your answer. Okay.
She went to cheer camp. What I'm saying is all of this has been a traumatic situation for me, and I remember all of these things, but the continuance of the reason why we filed a TPO is because you're right. She did go to camp with her mother against her will because she was thinking that maybe this would work out. Maybe me and my mother could have, and she wasn't. It wasn't. She still wasn't. She still didn't feel safe.
All right. So she went to cheer camp with her mother. Did you hear about any altercations or any problems while they were going to cheer camp?
He said because she wasn't mostly with her mother. She was mostly.
So is that a yes or a no?
No.
Okay. And so after she returned from cheer camp, you took Lariah to her mother's home on July 4th. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you let Lariah go inside the home by herself, correct?
Yes.
When you pulled up to the house, did you see other vehicles there?
Yes, I did.
Did it appear that Miss Greer was having company over at the home?
Yes, it was.
Did you know whether or not, did you know who was inside of the home besides Mrs. Greer?
No.
No. And when Lariah went to the door, did she have any problems? Did you see anything?
Yes, she waited. She waited a while for them to come to the door.
Okay, but did you hear people in the backyard?
Nope, I didn't see it. I didn't hear any bad people. I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear anything, but you knew that there were lots of cars and vehicles there.
Yep, there was cars in front of their property and some in their driveway.
So you never went inside of Miss Greer's home, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay, and what happened when Lariah came back outside?
She was attacked.
Where was Mrs. Greer at this time when you say she was attacked?
Lariah came out of the house. Her mother, Kelly Greer, and Kamar Wilcoxon was behind her. They came outside behind Lariah? Yes, they did.
Okay, so when was Miss Greer at your car yelling?
When my daughter finally went in the house, that's when Miss Greer appeared and came out and came to my car and was saying, "We need to talk."
Okay, so you don't know if Miss Greer approached Lariah at any point while she was inside the home. Is that correct?
From what Lariah told me.
I said, do you know?
No.
So you didn't see any of that. So Miss Greer came out to your car and you're saying she wanted to talk to you. What did she want to talk to you about?
She was saying we need to talk about the situation that happened on June 15th.
Okay, and you refused to talk to her. Is that correct?
Yes, because I noticed that she was under the influence of alcohol.
So from June 15th to July 4th, we're talking about approximately 20 days. You didn't have a conversation with Lariah's mother regarding Lariah and the incident that had been going on?
No, because when I tried to talk to Ms. Greer, only thing was yelled as obscenities, and there's no talking through that. When somebody has no remorse or you can't even question them about what happened, it's no way to have a conversation.
All right. So when she wanted to talk to you, you said she wanted to talk to you about the incident that happened on June 15th, correct? And did she say anything to you about she wanted Lariah to come back home?
Not when. Are you talking about that incident right there?
Yes.
When she asked me to talk to her, she went exactly from, "Oh, you ain't gonna talk," she went to cussing me out.
Okay. And so how did she end back up in the house?
They carried her. They had to basically carry her in the house.
Okay. And so Lariah came out the front door. Did she have her things with her?
Yes, she did.
What did she have with her?
Some stuff that she had delivered prior to her leaving.
Okay. And so at what point did things become physical between Miss Greer and Lariah?
When she encouraged her son to get physical with him, with Lariah.
So are you saying that Mrs. Greer told her son?
He pushed her son in the effects like, "Get that," and that's when he attacked her. So,
all right. So you never saw Miss Greer physically touch Lariah?
Yeah, I seen her touch Lariah during the process of as it escalated. She was initiating with Kamar Wilcoxon to be.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Holding her down.
You're saying Miss Greer was holding Lariah down? Why would she be holding Lariah down?
Because at the time she was yelling obscenities at her.
But what reason would she have to hold her down if you're saying she didn't have a problem with Lariah leaving?
Well, I can't say that I can't say that she didn't have a problem with her leaving, because by this time she was yelling that y'all for 16 years.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying she was mad at Lariah, or was she mad at you?
She was mad at me, but she was taking it out on Lariah. I mean, I can't tell you where her anger was and why it came, where it came from, but I can tell you that it was being directed towards my daughter, and it had me uneasy, and I didn't feel safe, because what it did is it put me in harm's way, because as you see, those are two adults, and this is a 6'2", 250-pound Division I football player that is attacking my daughter. So I mean, this is hard.
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to. I don't understand what you're asking me.
I'm just asking you what happened. That's it. So you're saying that he was holding your daughter down. What did you do?
I couldn't do nothing. I was. The fact that I'm not supposed to. I wasn't allowed on her property. Not saying that I have anything holding me against it, but they didn't invite me on their property. And at that time, me going onto that property, it was going to lead to more violence and somebody's getting hurt. And with me being, my life has already been threatened by Miss Greer on several occasions since June 15th, I didn't feel safe. And that was me sitting here having to relive it right now is one of the worst feelings ever, to watch your daughter be attacked by her mother and her brother. That's one of the worst feelings. I couldn't do nothing but what I did.
But you saw Lariah slap Kamar, correct?
Yes, I did. After that, no, I didn't. Matter of fact, I didn't even see her. I didn't even see her slap him. But in evidence that can't be presented right now, that's when I actually seen it, because it was so much craziness going on.
So you don't know what could have occurred prior to Lariah coming outside. Is that correct?
I know that it wasn't an incident between her and her brother, because he was outside dragging his kicking and screaming mother into the house.
But that was after Lariah was already inside, though, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay, and the police were called, correct?
Yes, they were.
Okay, before, when you say he attacked Lariah and was holding her down, what happened after that? Did you drive off?
Yes, I did, because like I said, when he was holding her down and her mother was holding her down, her mother came back to the car and was shaking and shaking the car.
Okay, and you drove off, and you said that Mrs. Greer and Kamar ran after your vehicle, correct?
Yes.
So where was Lariah at this time?
Getting up off of the ground.
So did they run past Lariah to chase your vehicle?
Yes, they was right there. They was right there it was, all of this was like right there, close in close proximity to my vehicle when this was happening.
Okay, so if they wanted to harm Lariah, why didn't they harm her then instead of chasing after your vehicle?
I mean, the harm had already been caused to me. The harm was really to bait me into losing my cool, and it escalated into something else. It wasn't she was a part of it. They attacked her, but it was also to draw me into escalate the confrontation.
So isn't it true that really that incident was a result of Mrs. Greer, being mad because you wouldn't speak to her about the situation?
No, I can't say that. No, I can't say that. I can say that all of this occurred because Miss Greer doesn't have control over anything. That's what she was upset about. She was upset about her daughter not wanting to cheer at a place that would cause her to get home almost 1 o'clock every night that she cheers.
So you're saying she was upset about Lariah cheerleading at that moment?
Because I myself was unable to drive Lariah to Kennesaw. All of this escalated after the fact that Lariah stated that I stated to Kelly Greer that I wasn't going to be able to drive to Kennesaw 3 times a week. So I can't say that it didn't stem from that day. It had been simmering and boiling since before that day, and nothing had been done about it.
Okay, and so Mr. McMullen, you do understand that you do not have primary physical custody of Lariah, correct?
Yes, I do.
You do
Yes,
understand.
but I also know that it is against the law. I also know that it is against the law for her mother and her brother to attack her. So you're saying that since she has custody, she's allowed to attack and let her grown
I
son.
didn't say anything. I just asked
We're
you a
not, no,
question.
stop. We're not going to go back and forth between each of you. Just answer the questions, please, sir.
So is that a yes? You do know that she has primary physical custody of Lariah?
Yes, I do.
And you do understand that
But I thought the divorce decree said we have joint custody though.
I said physical custody. I believe you have joint legal custody.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And so can you understand why Ms. Greer would be upset that you are not talking to her about Lariah and what's going on with her?
I can't, because it's upsetting that this even occurred. That's what's upsetting. I can't understand it. You said, you asked me a question. Can I understand why she's mad? I can't understand why she's that mad. I can't. I can't.
Have you all been having problems with Lariah being disrespectful and disobedient over the last year or so?
I can't say that I have, but her and her mother, she's a team.
Okay, but what about, didn't Lariah have problems with your mother as well?
She had problems with my mother after her mother called and told some untruths about what was going on.
All right, so you hadn't seen a change in Lariah's behavior?
Oh, what you mean? Since she's been with me?
No, in the last year or so.
Yeah, I seen her become more depressed and more angry because her mother won't stop.
All right, so you admit that she's been angry with her mother?
The treatment.
Is that a yes?
She's angry with the treatment. I can't say yes.
Has she had arguments with her mother?
Yes.
Have you talked to Lariah about things that her mother, the rules and things that her mother has in place and how she should respond to those things?
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to this line of questioning. This really is not relevant to whether or not these acts occurred. I think that what Ms. Simmons is trying to do is say that there's some sort of justification for the mother's acts.
All right. So the objection seems to be relevant, Ms. Simmons. What is your response? And I will say we are getting a bit into co-parenting disagreements versus whether she's committed an act of family violence against the.
Well, Your Honor, my point behind this was whether or not there has been things that have been building up. Whether have there been altercations and problems, not just, Ms. Greer, but between both of them? Have there been arguments? Have there been problems, and how are they trying to address those things?
Okay, well, I'm not sure how that's relevant to whether there's been an act of family violence committed.
Okay, all right.
I think it's clear that I've heard evidence that the parties do not talk to each other well, regardless of the reasons. And that's the adults I'm talking about. So I will sustain the objection at that point.
Okay, all right, Your Honor. Mr. McMullen, if this TPO is granted, what is your plan going forward as far as Lariah is concerned?
Pretty much getting custody of her.
Okay, so you do intend on filing a petition for modification of custody?
Very much so.
And you think it is your opinion that Lariah should not have any contact with her mother at all?
Not at this time.
Well, what time would be better?
I mean, my daughter doesn't feel comfortable. I can't tell you what her timeline is for her to be comfortable. And through this whole situation, there still hasn't been an apology or anything. It's just been, y'all are doing something wrong. So it's still coming like we're inciting the violence or the riot. We're not. I'm not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you can finish your statement.
I don't allow my daughter to disrespect her mother. Even the night that I picked her up, June 15th, I got on Lariah because I told her that is still her mother. At no time is it okay to be disrespectful to your mother. I have never parented my daughter in a way that she is to be disrespectful anywhere she goes.
All right, so you admit that there has been, disrespect coming from Lariah as well.
Again, I object on relevance.
I'm going to overrule the objection and let him answer this question.
Okay.
And then we're hopefully going to move on.
Yes, I'm going to be wrapping up, Your Honor. So you admit that there's been disrespect from Lariah towards her mother as well, correct?
I don't know how to answer that in a straight up way to say that it's disrespect on both ends.
Okay. And you said that Mrs. Greer hasn't apologized to Lariah, but isn't it true that you filed this petition for protective order just a few days after this incident?
No, I didn't file it directly after this happened. I filed it like 3-4 days after being continually harassed and sent texts from very sources that Miss Greer has access to. People sending texts, derogatory texts. Like I said, her husband still calling me and saying, like, worried not about Lariah, but about cheerleading.
All right. So what are you saying Miss Greer did? Because you just said
okay. Well, she contacted her through Cash App.
Who is she contacted her?
Miss Greer, Kelly Wilcoxon Greer, contacted Lariah McMullen through various sources of media outlet through Cash App. She was sending her she was sending messages through Cash App. She sent a couple through her grandfather, about saying that, that's still your mother, that she loves you or whatever, but it still hasn't been, it still wasn't no remorse. And why I say it wasn't any remorse, because even after that incident, she was calling the school and taking Lariah out of all her activities, and also assassinating my character to the point where it's not hearsay if somebody tell you that this is being said about you and you're not acting.
I'm going to stop there. It is hearsay legally under the legal definition. So I think he's answered your question. Anything else?
Just one more question, Yana. Do you believe that you all need to go to counseling?
I absolutely believe my daughter needs counseling.
You don't believe that you all need family counseling?
Me and my daughter, we need family counseling. Yes, we do. But I can't say that I need counseling with Miss Greer, because it has never been a situation where each party is being heard. It's always you're talking down, or what I'm saying, you're validating why, and everybody continues to validate why it's okay for her to have done what she did to her child.
But isn't that something that counselors can assist with, a better communication between you?
And once again, I say no, because my daughter doesn't feel ready for it, and she's the most important person doing this. What I'm doing is not in any retaliation towards Miss Greer. It's to ensure that my daughter has a beneficial life, and what is happening to her, it is creating post-traumatic stress. And the reason why I speak on that is because it's something that I know about, that I received from this lady. So
you don't think that it would be stressful for Lariah and to have such a strained relationship with her mother?
It's not, because it's straining on her to try to move past stuff, and it's being and old stuff is being rehashed. It's stressful on my daughter more than it is on her mother, if her mother is able to be derogatory towards her and to continue the onslaught of the mistreatment. That's what we're here about. That's why I filed a TPO, for my daughter's protection, for her, because after this, she's 16 years old. She will soon be an adult, and she has scars that have been inflicted on her by her mother.
And only her mother has caused her problems? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying, I'm saying this situation has heightened what her mother has been doing. That's what I'm saying. It's not that I'm saying that it's a strain. The thing what you're saying is, to me, I'm hearing your word about family counseling. I want to get my daughter counseling. So if she's in the headspace, because I'm still telling her that that's her mother, one day she's going to have to reconcile what I'm not trying to just take her mother out of her life. Her mother
isn't filing the TPO going to take?
Okay, we're not. I'm going to stop now. We're getting into argumentative. All I'm looking at is whether an act of family violence has been committed and whether there's a future likelihood of it. And generally, the best practice is not to order family counseling.
I understand that. Yeah.
In temporary protective order cases, that might be part of a family court case and a guardian ad litem and all that jazz. But I think we've straight appealed here.
Okay, and Mr. McMullen, just one final question. You've only heard of one incident involving Mrs. Greer and Lariah having a physical altercation, correct?
Yes, that I can recall.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
Can you redirect Ms. Hyman Towers?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. On June 15th, did you observe Ms. Greer putting her hands on Lariah?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you just observed her putting her hands on your daughter on July 4th, correct?
And I only heard threats on June 15th.
Okay, so right, you testified as to what you heard her mother saying over the phone before you arrived. Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
All right, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other evidence or witnesses from the petitioner?
No, Your Honor.
All right, just one moment. Y'all, Ms. Simmons, you may call and swear your first witness.
All right, Your Honor, I call Mrs. Kelly Greer. Ms. Greer, raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Kelly Wilcoxon Greer.
And Mrs. Greer, are you Lariah's mother?
Yes, I am.
And can you tell the court why over the past year and a half you believe there's been problems between you and Lariah?
It started last year, actually October 31st to be exact. Lariah's like real big on cheerleading. So it was Halloween and they were having a trick or trunk at their gym. When I arrived, I'm like, wow, where's Lariah? And I immediately text her and she was like, well, I stayed after school for the trick or trunk with the band or something. So I said, okay. And I asked Lariah, I said, Lariah, if plans change, if you're not going to be where you're supposed to be at a certain time, please let me know. I also reiterated this with her father and he said, okay. Well, a couple of days later, which is now the first week of November, a couple of days later, Lariah was not at cheer practice again. She was late because the coaches are asking me, hey, where's Lariah? And I'm like, at this point, I'm panicking because I'm like, what do you mean, where's Lariah? I haven't heard from Lariah. So I immediately called Lariah and Lariah said, oh, my dad said I could stay after school for a game. I said, well, Lariah, didn't the other week I asked you if plans were going to change, if you weren't going to be where you're supposed to be, I asked you to reach out to me. So she got very disrespectful, really upset. So I said, you know what? Just come on home. You're not going to cheer practice. You're just come on home. So she came home and her father brought her home. And I was sitting down on the couch. And when she came through the door, I said, hey, Lariah. She storms up the stairs. And I was kind of laying down on the couch. So I kind of set up. I said, hey, Lariah, you don't see me. You're not going to speak. She slams her door. I said, oh, wow. So she's in her room throwing things around. And I said, Lariah, I said, call your dad back. Bet, I can go with him. Bet, F you. I said, okay. I let Lariah go. She packed up her things. She left. At the time, Mr. McMullen did not have a place of residence, as he's never really had a place of residence. He never had a place of residence for Lariah to reside at. So Lariah had to go live with her grandma, Meredith McCluskey. That's her grandma's name. She had to go live with her grandma. Me and the grandma have I would say a decent relation. Well, I'm gonna be honest, we had a good relationship before July 4th. We would talk because of course this is her grandchild. And just a little backstory, I lost my mom to cancer about 3 years ago. And she was very vital in Lariah's life. And we actually, when my mom was on, and I'm trying to say this without crying, when my mom was on hospice, nobody really wanted to take my mom in. So I took my mom in because, her and my dad had been married almost 50 years. And my dad was saying, if I bring her home, it's going to be hard for me to watch that spot, which I got it. So I wasn't going to allow my mom to go into a home. So I moved her into our home in the basement and she did hospice at our home. She lived about 5 days after she was on hospice, but Lariah was here the whole time. And I think it really did a number on Lariah. So after my mom passed, I kind of, started talking to Meredith McCluskey, that's Lariah McMullen's mom. And, we were kind of, if Lariah would do like little things, she would, say something to Lariah, just kind of being, she's trying to step up and kind of be in the ram for, her missing her grandma. Because she wasn't, even though Lariah's mom is her grandma, Lariah went to my mom's house every day from school. My mom for her. So anyway, like I know I got a little off track. So anyway, me and his mom does have a good relationship. So on that incident in November, when he came back to pick her up, I didn't verbally ever tell Lariah to get out my house. I called him and said, hey, no, I didn't call him. I told Lariah, I said, Lariah, you call your dad and tell him to come get you. And she said, bet I can go with him, because she had been doing little things trying to not live here because she doesn't want to abide by rules. So Lariah McMullen had to take Lariah to his mom's house because he did not have a place of residence for her. She stayed over there maybe, I guess, like a month before they went and got a house. And even, his mom would call me a lot, and she would say, everything you said about Lariah, I see that it's true, because I'm having the same issues.
Wait, objection, hearsay.
Ms. Simmons?
Yeah, just state what you know. Don't say what someone else said.
Okay, I'm going to strike that last statement.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. State.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. This is my first time really dealing with something like this. I'm sorry about that. So the thing about it is I never put Lariah out. So when he finally did get a place of residence, I guess I can't even mention what was said from his wife.
No.
Okay. So when he got a residence, Lariah moved in or whatever. And then in December, of course, it was Christmas time, Lariah came back home.
Did you tell Lariah that she had to come back home?
No, I did not tell Lariah that she had to come back home. I did tell Lariah that she had to come back home. And I think he was raising his hand.
You can continue.
Okay. I didn't tell Lariah that she had to come back home. She actually came home like how most spoiled kids do. She came home for Christmas because she wanted her gifts. Of course, I would want my Christmas gifts as well. She stayed, and Lariah turned 16 January 26th. On January 15th, Lariah had a huge Sweet 16 ball. Everything was fine then. She continued to, she had to go to Vegas for a competition in February. She had a couple of competitions in March. She had a couple of competitions in April. She's been here all this time. Now, back in, I want to say March, I did file a child abandonment warrant because he is in the rears thousands of dollars. And I filed a child abandonment warrant. And I really feel like a lot of this stuff is retaliation for that child abandonment warning. We actually have to go to a continued hearing on Friday of this week.
Okay, so from December to June, Lariah's been living in your home. She was living in your home.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And what happened on June 15th?
June 15th, she was at the cheer gym in Kennesaw, which has always been her dream, that she begged me to take her to. And I asked Lariah before I signed Lariah up, I said, Lariah, this is a huge sacrifice. Have you spoke with your dad about him picking you up? She said, yes, I did. And he said, it's okay. I said, okay. So I still signed Lariah. She tried out for this team. It's called the World's Team. She tried out for this team. She made this team. And she basically, was happy that she made the team. Well, I also have a 6-year-old daughter that cheers as well. So I went ahead and put my 6-year-old daughter out at Kennesaw as well. So on this night, they only practice 2 days a week, not 3. He said 3 days. But on this night, my baby has practice like from 5:30 to 7:30. Lariah's practice was from 7:30 to 9:30. So my son's girlfriend picked Lariah up that night from Kennesaw for me. She brought her home, but they stopped to get something to eat. She brought her home. And I guess I can't really say what conversation was had between them, but she brought her home. She came downstairs. I was on the phone with my mother-in-law, and she was like, will you hurry up and get off the phone? So I put my phone down. I said, what's going on? I need to talk to you. I said, is it an emergency? She said, no, because I knew on her face, her demeanor, I knew it wasn't an emergency. So I said, well, give me 1 moment. So she starts beating on the wall. And I get off the phone with my mother-in-law. She starts beating on the wall. She starts yelling at me, because what it breaks down to, she wanted to go to her father's house because she told me that if she didn't go over there and be able to see her girlfriend was going to break up with her. And over here, she could have company, but you're going to have company, you're going to have supervised company. You're not going to have spend the night company. You're not going to have in the room company, not at 16. So she wanted to go over there. So I was telling Lariah, I said, you're doing too much. Like, she kept calling me out my name. She kept calling the BIT. I'm not going to say the cuss word. I don't even feel comfortable cussing on court, but she called me a BITCH several times. And when I really wasn't reacting, she took a 10-pound, one of my workout dumbbells, and threw it at me. I had to duck, so I did not get hit. She picked up another thing and she threw it at the fireplace. So I'm like, you just need to go upstairs in your room. Her stepdad is saying, Lariah, just go upstairs, start that my son's girlfriend that was here, she was like, Lariah, just go upstairs, like, just leave it alone. Lariah goes upstairs in her room. She's throwing things in her room. I'm telling Lariah, I say, Lariah, please stop throwing stuff. Paris is asleep. By this time, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, please stop throwing things. Paris is asleep. And I said, it's late. We got to get up and go to work in the morning. Like, just let it calm down. Well, she didn't want to hear that. That's when she started calling me a bitch again. She grabbed all of my hair, threw me to the ground, and started punching me. Not one time in any of these incidents have I ever put my hand on Lariah. The July 4th incident, I did not put my hand on Lariah. I'm not angry towards Lariah. I'm not even angry towards Mr. McMullen. I'm just trying to parent my child the correct way. And just because she gets upset at the answers, or if I don't agree with what she's asking, she calls Roger McMullen and he comes over here running to pick her up, to give her way. That's not, in my book, that's not parenting. Everything that a child asks for or asked to do, they shouldn't be allowed to do it. I'm not in agreement.
Okay, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to intervene right here. I think we're getting into.
Okay.
I understand there's a disagreement as to parenting. I'm just trying to hear evidence of whether there was acts of family violence or not. So Ms. Simmons, if you could please redirect your client. I think she was kind of going off on a narrative at this point.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So how did, on the June 15th altercation.
And hold on, in just a second. And Mr. McMullen, I need you to please check your face while we're doing this, where if we were in court, people would be saying, please stop, don't react. It doesn't make me believe or disbelieve anybody anymore. Okay, behavior in court is important. I know this is a difficult situation for everyone, and I just ask that everyone please remain civil. Go ahead, Ms. Simmons.
Okay. So on June 4th, you say Lariah grabbed you by your hair and slammed you down to the ground.
June 14th.
I'm sorry, on the 14th. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what happened after that? Did someone break you all up? What occurred?
Yeah, my husband and Star had to get Lariah off of me.
All right.
I even got a concussion. I had a knot on my forehead. And during that time, when Lariah was calling her dad and her grandma, Mr. McMullen was on the phone screaming at me, my husband, and telling us that he was going to come over here and F us up and that he was going to take us for everything that we have. That's what he was telling us. And he told us we better be ready for him when he gets over here. So when he wants to discuss anything about a weapon or anything, he threatened us. And we don't stay in a regular community, we stay in a gated community. So he has to actually use a code to enter in. And each time he comes over, he's using our personal family code that I did not give to him.
Okay, so he came over on that day and he picked up Lariah.
Mm-hmm. And
then when was the next time you saw Lariah?
A couple of days after that, because I took her to the Omni Resort in Orlando. We flew there on a Friday. We flew back on Wednesday.
And so who was with you and Lariah on that trip?
Just me, Lariah, and my baby girl, Paris.
Okay. Did you force Lariah to go on that trip?
No, I did not force Lariah to go on that trip. Lariah, when we first were leaving, she wanted to stay at school because they were having like a cheer camp at school. And it was supposed to be ending. Well, the time it was ending, we would have missed our flight. Well, our flight got delayed, thankfully. And she was able to stay at the cheer thing at school. And she was cool with that. So we picked her up from the school and my husband took us directly to the airport and she was fine. I mean, she had a blast. She went, and even though Mr. McMullen says she wasn't with me, she slept in the hotel room with me. Me and her even went out to dinner a couple of nights. So I'm not sure how she was forced.
Okay. And so when you all got back, did Lariah go back with her dad?
Yeah, she did. We got back about 12 a.m. and she called her dad. She was in the back of the car. She was like, did you get my text? And he came to the house at probably like 1 o'clock in the morning to pick Lariah up.
Okay. And did you prevent that in any way?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And so let's talk about the July 4th incident. Why did Lariah come to your house on July 4th?
Lariah texted me on July 4th asking if she could come over to pick up some. She said she was on her cycle. She didn't have any pads. She needed some pads and she needed to get her check and a gift card. So just with the history of me and Mr. McMullen and what had already went on June 14th, my husband wasn't here. It was just me and my baby girl here. And my husband said, because he went to go pick my son up from the airport. So my husband said, well, I don't want you to be home alone while they're there. So just wait till I come back. So tell Lariah about 5 o'clock. And the reason being is because me and Mr. McMullen's marriage was not a good marriage. He was very abusive, physically abusive. As a matter of fact, after I had Lariah, when I brought her home, he fought me the day that I got home with Lariah. So I'm already a little uneasy about him. And with the incident that happened on June 14th, I didn't want to be here alone with them because I knew Lariah was gonna have to come in the house and, you know, get her stuff, and I was fine with that. So Lariah got here, and the reason why she stayed at the front door for so long, because it was the 4th of July. We were all on the bottom deck. The kids were outside, you know, we were grilling. It was the 4th of July. So that's why it kind of took us a long time to come to the door, because we didn't know that she was at the door. When she called me and said she was at the door, I immediately came upstairs and let her in. And when she came in, I said, "Hey, Lariah, how you doing?" I said, "I miss you." I gave her a big hug. And I said, "Everybody's downstairs. You should come and, you know, speak to everybody downstairs." I said, "Paris, you know, would love to see you." She went downstairs, she spoke. So by this time, I walked around the yard and I walked up to Mr. McMullen's car, well, his wife's car. And I said, "Can we talk?" And he said, "Right now, ain't a good time to talk." I said, "Well, when is it a good time to talk?" I said, "It wasn't a good time for y'all to come to my house on the 4th of July, but I allowed it." I said, "But when is a good time to talk? Because if we're going to co-parent this child, and if Lariah is going to be a child house, we need to talk." And when he was saying that I haven't offered an apology, I cannot even get in contact with my daughter because they have me on block. And Lariah had a cell phone on our family plan, and I tracked her location. She wasn't at school where she was supposed to be. And I told her, I said,
Okay, now
let's say on July 4th. I'm sorry.
okay, on July 4th.
So
Okay.
you go outside to talk to him, and what happens?
I go outside and talk to him, and he was like, "Nah, right now is not a good time." He started rolling up the window. So I'm like, "What do you mean right now is not a good time?" Like, I just can't just have my daughter in your care. I can't get in contact with my daughter. I don't know what's going on. I don't know her well-being. I don't know anything, because I'm very concerned, because he has not been a supportive dad, like as far as taking care of his daughter financially, or even providing a roof over her head. He's just now been able to do that. So, so by this time, my son, I'm sorry.
You know, all of this, again, Your Honor, is not relevant to whether or not acts of violence had occurred. And I just ask that all this be stricken.
Ms. Simmons.
I'm just asking her to explain what happened on July 4th. So Mrs. Greer, if you can just talk about the events of July 4th. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, whether he's paid child support or not is not relevant to whether there has been an act of family violence. It might be irrelevant to the ongoing course of conduct between the parties. But what I've heard so far is that she walked up to his car and he said he did not wish to speak to her.
Yeah.
And she remained and was about to explain. So without going into the whole background, can you say what happened per your attorney's question?
Yes, Your Honor. So I went up to his car, and my son came from, I'm not sure if he came from the garage or around back, and he was like, "Mama, just leave it alone. Don't worry about it." And I was like, "No," because I was very
Objection. This is hearsay.
How's it hearsay if I'm telling what?
Ma'am, you cannot say what someone else has said if they have not testified, or there's not another exception.
I didn't say what somebody else said.
You said my son said.
No, my son was
told me. Yes, that's hearsay. What your son is telling you is hearsay. So I'm sustaining the objection as to hearsay unless Ms. Simmons has an exception or other response.
No, Your Honor, just don't say what your son said to you.
Okay, so
what happened?
Okay, so my son took me in the house.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I was gonna say. My son took me in the house. Lariah was in the house, and I'm not sure what words were exchanged with her and my son. So I walked out the front door. I was the first one out the front door. I walk out the front door, and I'm headed back to Mr. McMullen's car to tell him, like, this is how she acts when she comes over here. She's very disrespectful. She had just cussed out everybody, from down to my aunts to my mother-in-law. She had just cussed out everybody in the household, everybody in the house, and everybody was shocked. So when I walked out the door, Lariah runs out behind me and said, "I'm gonna give that B another knot on her forehead." So that's when my son, because Lariah was running after me, that's when my son did pull her by her purse strap. And by this time, I'm at the car. I never during this whole time, I never put my hand on Lariah. I not one time put my hand on Lariah.
So you're saying your son was restraining Lariah because she was running after you?
Correct, because I was already at their car. I wasn't the last person out the house. Lariah wasn't running out the house. I was already at their car. She told me, like I said, she had just cussed out everybody in the house.
Okay, so Lariah was upset. Do you know why she was upset?
Because, like I said, her and my son had exchanged words.
Okay. All right. And so your son grabs Lariah by her backpack to prevent her from getting to you. And then what occurred next?
What occurred next is, I'm trying to play it back in my head. I mean, I have the video, but what occurred next was my son went up to the car, Mr. McMullen's car, and was telling him, well, I guess I can't say what he said. So, okay. So my son went up to Mr. McMullen's car. Mr. McMullen, during this whole time, he never got out the car, not one time. He never got out the car, not one time. Lariah threw her cell phone at my son, and he knocked.
You need to look at the camera, stop making faces.
Are you talking to me?
I think she's talking to her client.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I thought it was muted. I apologize.
okay.
All right, go ahead, ma'am, you can continue. You said that Loriah had thrown a phone at someone.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor. She threw the phone at my son. My son hit the phone and kind of like ricocheted off Mr. McMullen's vehicle. And she walks up and she slaps my son. And of course, like he did get her off of him and she ended up on the ground, but that's because he kind of like pushed her away. He did not ball up any fists or anything and hit her. And even then, when my son was trying to walk away, Loriah grabs him by his leg. She's still trying to fight at this point. Loriah grabs him by his leg. Mr. McMullen pulls off. And the only thing that kind of, I guess, might have slowed him down because he had to wait on the gate to open out the neighborhood because we're in the very first home. So he didn't have to go too far. So he didn't get out the car not one time if he thought anybody was doing anything to his daughter. I did not hit Loriah on the June 14th incident. I didn't hit her on the July 4th incident. So I'm not sure why I'm being withheld from having any, like, I don't have to have contact with Loriah, but I don't want this TPO in place because
Okay.
it's, okay, I'm sorry.
We'll get to that. 1 second.
Okay.
So, have you ever threatened to kill Loriah?
No, I have not.
Have you ever been arrested on any domestic violence charges?
I've never been to jail.
Have there ever been any defects, investigations against you?
No.
Has Loriah always had a cell phone?
Yes. Well, I mean, not all her life, but maybe like around, like 9 years old or something.
Have you ever prevented her from calling 911?
No.
Have you ever had any physical altercations except for the June 14th, 15th incident with Loriah?
No.
Did anything between you and Loriah get physical on that November incident?
No.
All right. And can you tell the court why you don't believe that there should be a TPO, a protective order, preventing you from seeing your daughter?
Because my daughter needs some help. My daughter now is on my husband's health insurance, and I can't get her the help that she needs with the TPO in place. I can't be a mother. I've raised this child by myself for 16 years. Why all of a sudden now am I painted to be an aggressor when I've taken hits from Loriah? So, and we all know that's on this call, we all know how teenagers are. And right now we're still a family and we just hit a rough patch in our life. And instead of trying to take her away or trying to keep me away, I think we should work together to try to get some counseling. And like I say, she doesn't have to come back home.
So you're okay with Loriah staying with her dad?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not asking the court to make Loriah come back home. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm not trying to make her come back home.
Well, what type of contact are you asking to have with Loriah?
Like, let's just say, for instance, if she has to go to the doctor, it's even the things with school, without him having custody, the school can't even contact him. I found out she hasn't been in school the last 3 days. I just checked the portal. Okay.
All right, we're getting.
Okay. So as far as like the TPO goes, I cannot have any interactions like her educational wise, anything. I can't take her to her appointments. Loriah needs therapy. I can't take her to her appointments. And I don't have to physically take her there in my car. But I mean, even if I have to meet them there to sign up on the insurance, because I don't believe he can't take her on my husband's insurance to her doctor's appointments. And the last time, well, I won't go into that.
Are you afraid that having a temporary protective order against you would affect your business in any way?
Yes, it will, because I've been.
Okay, that's not what I make my ruling on. Okay. I make my ruling on whether there has been an act of family violence committed and whether there's a reasonable likelihood of future acts of family violence committed. Okay. We have people come through who are officers and might lose the right to carry a firearm, and that's not what the decision is based on. Collateral consequences are what they are. Okay.
Do you believe, Mrs. Greer, that you are a threat to Loriah in any way?
Not at all. I would never harm my child.
Okay. And have you ever pulled a firearm and threatened Loriah?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. Nothing further, Your Honor. Subject to redirect.
Ms. Feynman Sowers, you may cross-examine the witness. And before you get started,
No, just Ms. Goodman, my understanding is that the child is on the Zoom and would like to be able to observe what's happening in her case.
I
It's
don't think-
possible.
I don't know that that's a good idea.
Okay.
She's a minor, and
Okay.
that's like a child sitting listening to a divorce case.
Yeah. All right.
I think
She had asked me to ask the court,
yes,
so that's
I
what
understand, but I regardless of how I rule, there's obviously some bad dynamics going on here, and I don't want to increase that by having her listen to the different things that people may or may not be saying.
Okay.
He has a right to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Greer, you do own a gun?
Yes, I do.
How many guns do you have in your household?
One.
And where is that gun stored?
It's actually in a lockbox, and it's actually it's in my car. It's in a lockbox in my car.
That's where it is right now, but it's been in your home previously.
No,
You've never had the lockbox in your home?
I've had it in my home, but you asked where it was right now.
I said, other than where it is right now, isn't it true it's been in your home?
Yeah, it's been in my home in a lockbox.
Okay, that's typically where you keep it?
No, I typically keep it in my car.
Okay. Was the lockbox in your home on June 15th?
I went and got it out of my car.
On June 15th, you went to your car and you got the lockbox?
Correct, when Mr. McMullen said he was gonna come over here and kill us.
Okay. And the lockbox was in the home when you're during the altercation with your daughter on that date?
No, this was after the altercation.
Okay, so your testimony is you didn't bring the lockbox into the house until after the altercation had ended?
Correct, because the altercation had ended, she was waiting on her dad to come pick her up. She was in her room waiting on her dad to come pick her up.
Okay, and so at that time, you admit to then going out to the car to get the lockbox. And is it true that you did you ever take the gun out of the lockbox at that time?
No, I didn't take it out of the lockbox at that time because honestly, I could not even remember the code offhand. I have the code stored in my phone.
Okay, but and isn't it true that at the time you were yelling, asking your husband to give you the code to the lockbox?
I did ask him to give me the code, correct?
Okay, and at this time, isn't it true that your daughter was in her room?
She was in her room with the door closed, correct?
Okay, and it's possible that she could have heard you asking your husband for the code to the lockbox.
Yes, that's correct. I just said that's correct.
Okay. And at the time that this occurred, had you been consuming any alcohol?
No, not at that time that it had occurred. It was
Okay.
like 2 o'clock in the morning by that time.
Okay, have you been consuming alcohol prior to that?
Earlier in that evening.
Earlier in that evening. Okay, what time did you start drinking?
Ma'am, I don't remember the exact time. Let me see. When they got here, so maybe about 8 o'clock.
Okay, and when did you stop drinking?
When Lariah came downstairs beating on the wall.
And what time was that?
This was probably about 10. When this incident happened, it was spanned over hours. It went on for hours.
Okay. It went on for hours. So again, so my question was, what time did you stop drinking?
I would say they got here about 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're testifying that on June 15th, you only were consuming alcohol between 8 p.m. and 9:30?
Yes.
Were you intoxicated?
I mean, I had a couple of drinks. Like I wasn't like I could not walk or anything like that. No,
Okay.
I mean I wasn't. I might have been tipsy. I wasn't intoxicated, but I was at home.
Okay. And isn't it true that that's your typical routine each evening? To have
No.
a few drinks after work?
No,
No?
that's not my typical routine.
Okay, well, isn't it true your typical routine was at least 3 or 4 times a week?
A couple of times a week, but what does this have to do with the case?
Ma'am, you don't get to ask questions to the attorney, same as I told the gentleman, okay?
Oh, okay. Sorry about
Just
that.
answer the questions, please.
Okay. So yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 times a week, but not every evening.
Is it more than 2 or 3 times a week?
No, it's not.
It's not, okay? And that's the truth.
Yes.
Okay. And you testified this, well, now we're hearing that these events on June 15th, they occurred over the course from 8 p.m. until 1 o'clock in the morning?
It was probably like no, it wasn't 8 p.m. That's the time I told you I started drinking. They didn't get home. They didn't get home, start and bring Lariah McMullen home until about 9:30. Remember I told you they stopped and got something to eat after practice.
Okay.
So this went on because Lariah still had on her cheer stuff when she came downstairs. So this went on from like 9:30 to like, it was probably like 2 o'clock in the morning by the time Lariah McMullen got over here to pick her up.
Okay.
It actually could have been later than 2 o'clock a.m.
Okay. And isn't it true that during the course of those hours, you entered into Lariah's room and you pushed her into the closet?
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
That's not true.
That's not true. Your testimony is she's the one who attacked you?
That's correct.
And you never laid hands on her?
I did not lay hands on her. I was trying to get Lariah off me. It took Star Burrell and my husband to get Lariah off of me.
So your testimony is that Lariah was attacking you and you had to get 2 other people in the household to get her off of you?
I didn't have to get it. They were already standing there to see what was going on. They saw what was going on. I didn't have to get them, but yeah, they had to pull Lariah off of me.
Okay. And you and again, you never struck her other than to push her away from you, is your testimony?
I did not strike her. I did not strike her.
Okay. And isn't it, I want to then talk a little bit about July 4th.
Okay.
I'm a little confused because you first testified that you said it was okay for Lariah to come over, but it had to be at a time that your husband was going to be back from picking your son up from the airport, but then you also had a party at the house and there were many other people there.
Yeah, I told them to come at 5 o'clock. It wasn't many other people over here. It was my aunt, my sister, my 3 nephews, my husband, my other daughter, and my son. It wasn't, we didn't have like a big, huge, we don't have big, huge parties. So I told them to come over here at 5 o'clock. They didn't get right over here. Right.
I'm sorry. When you say they, do you mean Mr. McMullen and Lariah?
Lariah, yes. Lariah McMullen did not get over here right exactly at 5 o'clock. I told her she could come at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
People,
what time did the guests arrive? Your other family members?
Almost right at 5 o'clock as well, like 4:30, 5 o'clock. We didn't have a whole bunch. It was literally my sister and her kids, my aunt, and my husband and my kids.
Okay. All right. And during on July 4th, had you consumed any alcohol before your daughter arrived?
Yes, it was the 4th. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And about how many drinks do you think you may have had?
Probably by that time, just 1 drink because I had just got done grilling out. We were cooking. I had been cooking all day to prepare for 4th of July.
Okay.
And it was a glass of wine. I had a glass of wine. Like I was outside cooking. That's why we couldn't hear Lariah at the door because I was outside it was the 4th of July.
Okay. So your testimony is you had 1 drink at that time.
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that after your daughter was let in the house, you went to the car in which Mr. McMullen and his wife were waiting, and you were shaking the door, yelling at them?
Is this a question? Or are you asking a question?
He said, isn't it true? So
Okay.
It sounds like a question so far.
No, can you ask the question again? You said when Lariah was in the house, did I go back out to the McMullen?
Ma'am, let her ask the question again. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You testified that Lariah went in the house and then you went over to talk to Mr. McMullen. You went to his car.
Correct.
And isn't it true when you were at that car, you were yelling and you and your son were shaking that car trying to open the doors?
Are you talking about the first time? Because remember, I went up to the car twice trying to talk. Are we talking about the first time?
The first time.
Yeah, the first time, no, I was not at there. As a matter of fact, remember I told you that my son took me back in the house. Even Mr. McMullen told you that he took me back in the house.
Okay, and what about the second time you went to the car? Isn't it true?
The second time, ma'am, my son was probably pushing the car, but I was not.
And you deny kicking the car?
I don't remember kicking the car. I had on like some flip-flops Even when the police came, they asked me, did I kick the car? And I showed the police the flip-flops. They said, did you have on those shoes? I said, yes.
Okay.
And if I did kick the car, it's because he started rolling off and I was probably trying to get away from the car, but I don't recall kicking their car.
Okay. And at any, all right. Do you deny making any threats either the first or second time that you were at the car in which Mr. McMullen and his wife were waiting for Lariah?
Did I make threats towards
Mr. McMullen or toward Lariah?
Lariah? Wasn't at the car the first time. Lariah was still in the house. I didn't even make a threat the second time to Lariah. And me and Lariah were not even really exchanging words. This incident on July 4th kind of mainly involved my son going up to their car, exchanging words with Mr. McMullen. I wasn't, if anything, Lariah was outside cussing, saying, F all y'all, and I'm gonna get to be another knot on her head. The whole July 4th situation wasn't really even an exchange with me and Lariah. It had something to do with her and my son. It's like a sibling thing. It
Okay.
had, I'm
So
sorry.
you're denying you encouraged your son to get her?
I am strongly denying that because even on the video that I have, and I even
No, I didn't ask. I didn't ask you.
Yeah,
that.
I'm strongly denying that. He did not.
Okay.
I did not entice. Why? First of all, my son is away in school. Why would I put my son in a place?
I didn't ask you
Ma'am,
that.
we're not asking questions back and forth, remember?
No, I did not put my son. No, I did not push my son and tell him to get my daughter.
And you didn't do anything to try to protect your daughter when he was dragging her and throwing her to the ground. Did you?
I didn't. Of course, I would have done something, but he wasn't dragging her. He wasn't dragging her. Look, like I said, Lariah ran. Remember when I said Lariah threw her phone and it ricocheted off their vehicle and she walked up to him and slapped him? I can't see how somebody that can be drugged and thrown to the ground can slap somebody too. I did not.
Well, you did testify that he did grab her by her purse,
Right.
and he was pulling her. And you also testified that you believe he pushed her, and that's maybe why she fell to the ground, correct?
Ms. Sowers, is that okay? I was going to say, this is a question.
So he pulled her by her purse strap, trying to detain her from going after me because she had already said she was going to hit me again. As far as the slap, that's like somebody walking up, slapping you, and you just kind of like, you know, like you like in shock. So she fell. She didn't get pushed to the ground. We were on concrete. If she got pushed to the ground and drugged, the police would have locked me and my son up that day. She did not have not one visible bruise at all, and she was checked out by the EMS.
Okay, so your testimony is that none of this would have occurred, or your son would have been arrested?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
I'm going to withdraw the question. All right, you do admit that your son was pulling on her purse.
When I say pulled, Attorney Flowers, I don't mean like pulling her like that. It's like how, so remember I said I'll walk out the front door first, right? She said she was going to hit me again. So it's like she was running after me. My son reacted and pulled her purse strap to stop her from going after me. He let her purse strap.
Okay, so your testimony is—
Let her finish, please. Let her finish.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So when he let her purse strap go, she wasn't on the ground or anything, because by this time I'm at the car trying to tell Mr. McMullen, look at what she's doing. You need to get out the car and say something. You need to do something. My son is by this time, my son is at the car as well. Now I can't repeat what he said because that's hearsay, but Mr. McMullen never got out the car. If his daughter was supposed to be getting drugged on cement, he never got out the car. Did that answer your question? I know, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
See, you never told your son to take his hands off your daughter, correct?
Did I ever tell my son to take his hands off my daughter? His hands was never on my daughter. Are you talking about the purse strap?
Okay, so your testimony is he only touched her purse, he never touched her body.
He grabbed her purse. Now, as far as like the testimony part, keep in mind, I'm before them. I'm walking out before them. I was the first one out the front door. So so I'm walking to the car. What's going on in the rear behind me? I can't see that.
Okay. All right. So I just want to be clear. You had one interaction outside with Mr. McMullen, and then you went back into your home, and it was actually your son who brought you back into the home after that first interaction, right?
Yeah, I was already outside when they came up, so I didn't leave out the home. When they first pulled up, remember I told you we were all out back? I was already outside. I walked around the home. I did not.
Okay. Well, then you walked up to the car, you
Mhm.
had this interaction, and your son brought you back in the house, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you're in the house and your daughter's in the house.
Mhm.
Why did you leave the house the second time?
Just as I said, my daughter and my son had exchanged words. Lariah cussed out everybody in the household. The guests that I told you that we had over, my mother-in-law, my aunt, my sister, and my nephews, she cussed out everybody in the household, telling us F y'all, all this
Okay,
other
that's
stuff.
what.
So I was,
You get to explain her answer. Go ahead.
you telling me to go ahead, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, so I was walking outside to tell Mr. McMullen, hey, you need to come, like, look at what she's doing. Like, she just cussed everybody out in here. Like, something needs to be said to her. So that's when, because I said, I'm going outside and I'm going to tell your daddy what you in here doing. That's when I walk out the door first. Then she comes and say, I'm going to put another knot. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to put another knot on your head. I guess that's hearsay. I can't say that. I'm sorry. But she says
You can say what she has said as she has testified.
Okay, yeah, she said she was going to hit me. And my son basically protected his mom by stopping her from hitting me. That's why he pulled her by her purse strap. So it wasn't like premeditated for all of us to go outside. It was like we had family. It wasn't friends. It was my family over here.
Okay, so
Sorry,
at the time you left the house, Lariah was right behind you. Was she actually had a bunch of belongings in her possession? She was trying to get back to the car, correct?
She didn't have a bunch of belongings in her possession. She had just only had a package, like a mailer package, like a small, like an Amazon package, the white package. She only had that package in her hand. She didn't have.
She was trying to get out of there. She was trying to go back to the car, correct?
She was trying to go. I mean, I didn't tell Lariah to leave out the house. Lariah, like I say, Lariah was in the house cussing everybody out, and everybody was in shock because inside our household,
Ma'am, you need to answer the question yes, no, or I don't know, and then you may explain.
Okay, what was the question?
The question was, I was asking, isn't it true that before you went out of the house, it was actually Lariah who was attempting to leave?
No, she wasn't attempting to leave. She didn't even get the stuff yet. Because remember I told you she needed menstrual pads. She wanted to get some of her clothes. And she came over here to get her check and her gift card.
Okay.
She left out the house without getting the things that she came for. We didn't tell Lariah to leave. Lariah left out the house because she didn't want me to go back out to the car and say anything to her father.
Okay. So which happened? Was she trying to get out of the house to prevent you from talking to her dad, or was she in the house trying to leave the house? She was
not. You keep asking the same thing. She was not in the house trying to leave the house. She was in the house because Lariah hadn't even went upstairs yet to get her stuff out of her room. Remember I told you her and my son had like a sibling, like they were going verbal altercation, and then she cussed everybody out in the house, the guests, my family that were here. And I left out of the house to go talk to her father. Nobody told Lariah she had to leave. Nobody was trying to hold Lariah here.
Okay. So your testimony is after your son pulled her back from coming after you, that Lariah then went upstairs and packed her packages or whatever other possessions she left with?
I didn't say that.
You said she left the house with a package.
Because you asked me, did she have a whole bunch of her belongings? And I told you, no, she had like an Amazon package.
Okay. So when let's just be a little more clear. What floor was she on when she was holding the package and cussing out the relatives, you say?
The main floor.
The main floor. Okay. So this is all happening and you made the decision then to go out and speak to her father?
Correct. And I told her because I was trying
I didn't ask you that. Okay. So your testimony is that she then followed you, but this was before she had an opportunity to collect her belongings from the house?
She had plenty of opportunity to collect her belongings from the house.
Okay. When she followed you out of the house, did she have any belongings with her?
She had her purse and the Amazon package.
Okay. She had the purse and Amazon package. And she had never gone up to collect her things from her room?
Not that I know of, no. It was nothing down here when she left. She had never went to go collect anything from her room or her check that was on the counter.
Okay. And how long was she in the household? She was there 5 minutes, right?
No, she wasn't here 5 minutes. When she came in, Because remember, I said that I went out to Mr. McMullen's car. Lariah was in that house that whole time. That exchange went on maybe at least 5 minutes by itself. And before,
How long, so what would how long was Lariah actually in the home?
Lariah was in the home, I would say maybe about, when she came in the home, she went downstairs to the basement outside to speak to everybody. She was down there speaking for maybe about 5 minutes. Then she came upstairs. So total, it was probably about 10 minutes that she was in the home. It wasn't just 5.
Okay. So when she, and it's true, like when she arrived, that's when you went out to speak to her father and her stepmother.
Yeah, after I let her in the house, yes.
Yeah, after you let her in the house, right. And there was some sort of arguing that occurred outside of the home, and then you went back in the home, right?
Yeah, when I walked up to the car the first time, yes.
Okay. And so you come back into the home, and your testimony is that you heard Lariah cussing out the relatives.
Yes, I seen it, yes.
Okay. And your testimony is that after hearing this, you decided to go out to the car again to tell her father what Lariah was doing?
Correct.
So it seems to me that your position on this is really that you've done nothing wrong, that Lariah is actually the problem here. Is that correct?
I'm not saying that my child is the problem. I'm just saying that when she came over here, because this TPO was taken out, Judge Davis keep asking for us to explain how it was at the family balance, right? So when she came over here, I never put my hands on her. When she came.
So your daughter's lying then if she's saying that you pushed her into the closet, she hit her head, that she's lying about any threats of physical violence you may have made. She's lying.
Okay, so hold on, I'm going to intervene. So that's really not appropriate. Whether someone's lying or not is a question for the court to determine, and the trier of fact determines credibility of witnesses. So there may be another way you can ask that question, but this witness cannot testify whether another witness is lying or not.
Okay, all right. Now, isn't it true that you believe that your daughter Lariah has been the aggressor in June and July of this year?
Yes, that's correct.
And your
no, hold up. You said June and July. Now, July, I would not say my daughter was the aggressor to start it off, but I wasn't the aggressor. I think the bigger issue on the 4th of July was between Mr. McMullen and my son. I don't believe I wasn't the aggressor.
Okay.
Lariah.
So your opinion is that really what occurred again, I just want to make sure this is your testimony, that really July 4th had to do more with the altercation or the interaction between your son and Mr. McMullen?
Yeah, I didn't hit nobody. I didn't hit anybody on July 4th.
Okay. And your testimony is you didn't try to prevent your daughter from leaving on that date?
No, I did. Ma'am, I'm not trying to prevent my daughter from leaving. If my daughter is happy there, my answer is no, I did not try to prevent her from leaving. Why would I try to prevent her from leaving? Mr. McMullen pulled off and left his daughter. I didn't try to prevent her from leaving.
Okay.
I not one time.
All right. So actually, he didn't actually pull off and leave her, did he? He pulled off to get away from you and your son who were surrounding the car, right?
She had to walk outside the gate to get to his car. He pulled off and left, meaning he was outside of the gate.
Okay. And this was after after your son had pulled her and she somehow fell to the ground.
He pulled her by her strap when we walked out the front door at the beginning.
Okay. At the beginning. So it was after that Mr. McMullen was outside the gate.
Correct. Because remember,
Okay. And isn't it true that you since June that you've actually withdrawn your daughter from some of her activities at school?
Okay, I'm glad you asked.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Ms. Fineman-Sowers?
Actually, I'm going to withdraw that.
Okay.
I'm going to withdraw it. I do want to go back to your testimony to earlier, back in December. You said that your daughter was living with her grandmother.
No, I didn't say that. I said she
She
came,
left your home in November, right?
correct.
Okay.
By December, she was living with her father in
Okay.
his home, not with her grandmother.
Okay. So when was she living with her grandmother?
I mean, I don't know the exact timetable. That's probably a question you could ask your client. I know she was.
No, ma'am, no, just either answer yes, no, or I don't know, or approximately, but please don't respond to the attorneys and tell them what to ask. All right, they're just doing their jobs, representing their clients.
Okay, I'm sorry. I mean, because I honestly, I don't know, so I can't give you an exact date. I know she left our home in November. I know by Christmas time, her father was in his own place of residence. So I can't give you the exact date on when she moved from grandmother's house into father's house.
So your daughter left your home and you don't know where she was or for how long?
Of course, I know where my daughter was.
So when was she with her grandmother?
You're asking for an exact date?
Yeah.
Ma'am, I can't give you an exact date because you don't realize that I can't talk to her dad. I'm on block. I've been on block. So, and then they got Lariah a new phone. So Lariah stopped sharing her locations with me. I did not know where she was, to be honest. I knew you're asking me, when was she with grandma?
Yeah, because you said that you testified that all the trouble began on October 31st of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And your testimony was that that's when Lariah wanted to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
it was back in November when she wanted to leave. It was the first
at the beginning of November.
Correct.
Okay. And your testimony was that you never kicked her out.
I
never kicked her out. If I kicked her out, I would have been begging for her to come back home.
Okay. And at that time, you don't know where she went. Is that your testimony?
That's not my testimony. That's not what I said. I told you she went to grandmother's house because her
you don't know how long she
was a residence.
Okay.
I don't know the exact day of, I'm sorry. I don't know the exact day of when she moved from her grandmother's house. I don't know that.
Okay. So you also testified that Mr. McMullen didn't have a residence at that time. How do you know whether he had a residence or not?
His mom, because I asked his mom, why did Lariah have to stay over there with her? And she said, because he doesn't have the proper living arrangements for her right now.
Okay. So you don't actually know whether or not he had a residence at that time. You just know what his mother told you.
Yeah, because she was saying that basically her and her husband was taking Lariah to school. And I was like, well, is she going to go live with her father? And his mom said he doesn't have proper living arrangements. So whether I said residence or proper living arrangements, they did not have space wherever it was for Lariah. I've even asked Lariah in the past.
So it is possible that Mr. McMullen actually did have a residence back in October and November of 2022.
Of course he got a place to live, but he didn't have.
I'm just trying to clarify because you said he didn't have a residence.
Okay. I should have clarified that and said he did not have living arrangements for Lariah. They didn't have space for Lariah.
But you don't have personal knowledge of what sort of home he was living in, how many bedrooms there were, or anything else, right?
No, I don't. But his mom told me it was not enough space where he was at for Lariah.
Okay. And wouldn't it be possible that maybe Lariah was staying with his mother because she lived in the same school district?
No, that's not what happened. Even when speaking with, I guess it's hearsay, but I knew that they were looking for a place to live. I would just say that they were looking for a place to live.
And when you say they, you're referring to Mr. McMullen and his wife?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Did he tell you that?
Did he tell me that he was looking for a place to live? No, Lariah actually told me that. Lariah told me that her dad is getting a place and she'll be moving in with him.
Okay. And when did she tell you this?
This was in December, before Christmas.
Okay, before Christmas. And isn't it true that Lariah contracted COVID in December?
No, it wasn't in December. I'm trying to think, when did she contract COVID? It was probably like towards the end of November. I can't really think off the top of my head. I mean, if I could go off camera, I can go look for some records, but she contracted COVID when she was at her grandmother's house.
Okay, and isn't it true that her grandmother lives with an elderly man?
I mean, elderly man, you mean her husband?
Yes.
Yeah, she lives. I don't know about him being elderly, but I haven't seen.
Oh, okay. And isn't it true that Loretta actually had to leave that home because she contracted COVID?
No, she didn't actually have to. His mom, once when I took Lariah to the pediatrician to find out what was going on, because she had been sick for a couple of days. So they finally called me and asked me what urgent care do I take Lariah to. I said, well, I don't really take Lariah to urgent care. What's going on? So I took her to this was like on a Sunday afternoon. I took her to the pediatrician first thing Monday morning. And once they ran the COVID test, it came back positive. I called her grandmother and she said, well, just bring her back over here because I already been sleeping with her because, she's been coughing through the night. So, because I don't want you to take her home and she, infect everybody at our house. So I said, okay, well, Lariah called me the next day and I was checking up on her. She was coughing really bad. Lariah's asthmatic. Lariah has asthma. She was coughing really, really bad. So I decided to go get my baby and bring her home so I could make sure that she was okay. Because I didn't want her to have an asthma attack. His mom doesn't, Lariah McMullen mom doesn't drive. So I didn't want her to be in a bad spot where Lariah needed medical attention and she couldn't get it for. I mean, because asthma attack, she could die from. And then with COVID, it already messes with your lungs. So I brought her home. She stayed home. I think she had to quarantine here for like 5 days. And then after that, I took her back.
To her grandmother's?
Yep, I took her back to her grandmother's.
Okay. But then you don't know what day she left her grandmother's house?
I don't know, ma'am. I don't know because that information wasn't given to me.
Okay. So, you testified that your mother had stomach cancer and that she died approximately 3 years ago.
I didn't tell you what kind of cancer my mom had. I told you my mom died of cancer.
Okay. Your mother had cancer, yes?
Yes, she did.
And it wasn't stomach cancer?
I mean, no, you asked me, did I testify? I didn't,
Okay.
I didn't tell you.
Okay, you're right.
Okay.
She did have stomach cancer?
That's correct.
Okay. And at any time after a visit with your mom, did you ever physically attack, like during that time, that the 2 years that your mom was suffering with cancer, did you ever physically attack your daughter?
Ma'am, you're asking me during the time when my mom was sick, did I ever physically attack my daughter like those?
Yes.
I'm not understanding the question. Like,
ma'am, you just answer the question yes, no, or I don't know. She asked if you ever physically attacked your daughter during the time that your mom had cancer.
No.
Do you recall ever being in the car with her and striking your daughter in the stomach?
During the time, no, I don't recall striking my daughter in the stomach.
Have you ever taken the phone from your daughter when she's been trying to call 911?
No, I have not. I've taken the phone from her if she doesn't listen. But even if I took a phone from, we have a home phone as well. So if she wanted to call 911, she could still call 911.
Okay. And isn't it true that your daughter has had suicidal thoughts within the past year?
Yes, it is. And even when she was at her grandmother's house, I even set her up for virtual online therapy. Mm-hmm. And they basically allowed her not to attend the therapy session. The therapist called me and said that she kept on walking off from the camera because she was saying that she was trying to get in touch with her stepmom because it was a basketball game that night. And
okay, that's all hearsay. I'm not asking you about that. I'm just, yeah.
She's had suicidal thoughts, and I've tried to get her counseling, but they don't encourage her to attend.
Is it your testimony that she's ever only had, to your knowledge, that she's only thought about suicide since living outside of your home?
I didn't test it. This is our first time talking about suicide. Well, your first time asking me about it.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I'm asking you about it.
So you're asking me, has she had suicidal thoughts prior to living outside of my home?
Yeah.
She told me one time when she was here, but it came. Can I just answer the question? You want me to expound on or just answer the question, yes or no?
Answer the question, yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do when she told you that?
I took her to the doctor.
And what month and what year was this?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I would say 2022, because I took her in for her physical. So this might have been like June of 2022. And her pediatrician, she gave me a list of people that she recommended. And I'm trying to get, Lariah in to coordinate her with all her cheer and stuff or whatever. And we also went back to the doctor, and the doctor, she talked to Lariah, they talk to the kids alone. She talked to Lariah alone, and she was like, seems like she's doing, pretty good. So I did.
Okay, I didn't ask you about what happened with the doctor. I just asked if you were aware of her having suicidal thoughts and what month it was. So you're saying the first time you became aware of the suicidal thoughts was in November of 2022?
No, that's not the first time, because she actually went to the school counselor and told the school counselor, and I was not made aware of it personally. And the counselor actually got in trouble because she allowed Lariah's father to come pick her up. So I was not aware of that situation. I had to kind of find out why Lariah wasn't at school. So she's been mentioned. I'm sorry.
I just want to just follow up. So you're only aware. I'm going to come back to the suicide thing, but because you had mentioned the school, so you've never notified the school that he's an authorized person to pick up your Lariah, correct?
Relevant, Shauna.
Ms. Simon Towers?
Your Honor, she's testified to what happened at the school about the counselor.
It sounds like we're getting into custody dispute issues versus whether there's been a crime of family violence committed.
Yeah.
The parties, obviously, I've heard clear testimony, they are not co-parenting. And, the daughter's having issues. So I don't think that's disputed at this point. So I would ask that we move on from there. And obviously, the parties have always had an option to file contempt actions in either direction in the divorce case, or modifications, should they wish.
Right. Okay.
So you may continue, Ms. Simon Towers.
Okay. Ms. Greer, do you believe your daughter to be a liar or untruthful?
Sometimes.
And are you always truthful?
Pretty much so when it comes to my kids, yes.
Okay. All right. I have no further questions.
All right, any redirect?
No, Your Honor. I do have one question. Ms. Greer, does Lariah have any items at your home that she needs to retrieve?
I'm not sure. When Lariah left out on June 14th, she took about 5 bags with her. And when I took her to Orlando, I also purchased her some items.
So you don't believe that there's anything else at your home that she needs?
No, she has her MacBook that she needs. And actually, when I gave my father her cheer uniform, because I let her start back cheering at the school, I went in her room to see like maybe if there's like some, stylish sneakers, or how these kids like shoes. I was trying to see if like the sneakers that she liked to wear was in her room, and I didn't see them in her room. So
would there be any reason that Lariah needs to come to your home?
No.
Okay.
All right, ma'am, does she have any clothes or shoes at your home?
The clothes that she has left up there are not clothes that she can wear per se. So she took all of her clothes with her, summer clothes with her.
Okay, what about clothes she can wear to school in the fall and winter?
She took a lot of that stuff too, because it really wasn't she really doesn't wear sweaters. She pretty much wear crop tops, jeans, shorts, and hoodies. So all of her good stuff, like I say, I went in the room because I knew my father was meeting her. I went in the room looking for stuff that she might need. But if it's something here that she needs, of course I can get it to her if she tell me exactly, what it is. I'm not trying to withhold anything from my child. I definitely want my child to be clothed. But previously, I think they were asking for them to have a police escort to come over here. And I don't want the police back at my house. As you can imagine, it's
well, let me stop you there, because that was ordered in the ex parte, was it not?
No, I didn't see that.
There's not one trip in the ex parte?
I don't recall seeing that, Your Honor.
There wasn't one? Okay. All right. Well, then never mind. You have okay. So unless it's ordered by the court, you do have a right to not have to do that. So Ms. Simmons, you may swear her in and proceed. You just need to unmute.
Sorry,
there we go.
Ms. Burrell, please raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give to this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name for the record.
Star Burwell.
And Miss Burwell, how do you know Kelly Greer and Lariah McMullen?
Miss Kelly is my boyfriend's mom, and Lariah is his little sister.
Okay. And were you staying at their home for a point in time?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long were you in Mrs. Greer's home?
I want to say the months of June and July.
Okay. And during that time, did you and Lariah become friendly?
Yeah, we've always been like close, kind of.
Okay. And were you present on the evening of, I guess, June 14th, leading into June 15th, 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the court what happened when you and Lariah arrived at the house that evening?
Yes, that evening, after cheer, we got to the house and I had went to the basement with Miss Kelly while I was eating. And after Lariah came down there to talk to Miss Kelly, and they began to have a conversation about Lariah's sexuality, and it escalated into an argument.
So what happened exactly? So Mrs. Greer was downstairs in the basement with you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
where was Lariah?
She came down, I want to say like 20 minutes later.
Okay, so she came downstairs, and then what was Mrs. Greer doing when Lariah came downstairs?
She was having a conversation with someone on the phone.
Okay, and then was Lariah trying to talk to her? What happened?
Yes, ma'am. She was trying to talk to Miss Kelly while she was on the phone, and she kind of began to get agitated. And then Miss Kelly got off the phone, asked Lariah, what did she want to talk about? And that's when the conversation came about of Lariah's sexuality and what she wanted from Miss Kelly. And it just escalated from there.
So what do you mean it just escalated from there?
Lariah didn't like
arguing, or?
Yeah, Lariah didn't like Mrs. Kelly's response to her questions. Lariah asked,
Objection, hearsay.
So don't tell me what Lariah asked. So you said Lariah didn't like.
Wait, hold on. If Lariah has testified and been subject to cross-examination, the witness can say what she said, as she's also a party.
Okay, go ahead, Star.
do I say what Lariah said?
Yes.
Oh, so she basically asked Miss Kelly why her girlfriend couldn't come over, and but she really was just asking why her girlfriend couldn't come over, and Miss Kelly stated like that wasn't a problem. She just wanted supervision to, if her girlfriend was to come over, she wanted it to be supervised, and Lariah did not like that. So after Miss Kelly gave her answer of if she comes over, you guys have to be supervised, Lariah began to get upset. It was screaming, yelling. Lariah had threw a weight. She was banging on the table, banging on the wall. And through all of that, Miss Kelly was just sitting down. Like, she didn't really get aggressive with Lariah or anything.
Did Miss Greer appear to be intoxicated in any way?
No, she just was on the phone.
Okay. So after Lariah threw the weight, did anybody try to restrain her or tell her to stop?
No. Miss Kelly did tell her to quiet down because her younger sister was sleeping upstairs. This was about 11 p.m., maybe 10 p.m. at night.
Okay. And so after Lariah threw the weight, did she ever go back upstairs?
Yeah, eventually when Miss Kelly just like wasn't feeding into it, Lariah went upstairs, she slammed the door, and she told Mr. Patrick, which is her stepdad, that her dad was going to beat his ass. And after that, she went to her room, slammed her door. After a while, Miss Kelly was emotional after that, so I calmed her down and went upstairs, and we thought that was going to be the end of the situation. And Lariah was loud in her room, so Miss Kelly walked into her room and told her once again to quiet down because her sister was asleep down the hall. And Lariah was just telling her to get out her room, and she was also on the phone with her dad, and that's when her dad was screaming on the phone. And one thing led to another, and Lariah pushed Miss Kelly, and that's when the fight happened, which I was in the middle of. Lariah had a hold of Miss Kelly's hair, like a really tight grip on Miss Kelly's hair, and Miss Kelly couldn't move whatsoever because Lariah had her hair, and she was like pulling her down by her hair. Miss Kelly never hit her whatsoever. I actually got hit in the process of trying to remove Lariah off of Miss Kelly. And after I finally removed Lariah off Miss Kelly, there was a knot on Miss Kelly's head.
Did you see any bruises or marks on Lariah?
No, ma'am. Miss Kelly hit her.
Did anybody hit Lariah that evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so once you were able to separate them, where did Miss Kelly go?
In her bedroom.
And where was, go ahead.
I put Lariah in her bedroom and I had closed the door. Miss Kelly was in her bedroom. Everyone was separated at that point.
And so you said Lariah was on the phone with her dad?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she telling her dad what occurred?
Yes, I was in and out of the room because I was trying to keep them separated, but I do know she was on the phone with her dad and she was telling him what was going on and how she felt.
Did you hear her tell her dad that she was upset with her mom regarding not allowing her her girlfriend come over?
Yes, she was stating how it wasn't fair and, you know, the typical, it wasn't fair. She doesn't understand. She doesn't want to live there. She doesn't want to be there. Yeah.
Okay. And did her father ever come and get her?
Yes. He actually called me and he told me to drop Lariah off at the gas station. And at this point, it was 12 o'clock at night. And I told him that I wasn't comfortable with dropping a 16 off at the gas station at 12 o'clock at night. And soon after, once again, she was on the phone with him and he was screaming and yelling. He was on speakerphone.
The last time we were in court on this case, I believe, and please do not unmute yourself, on July 28th, there was a TPO in place. Dad had temporary custody of the child as per the TPO. And I reset the case to review regarding the TPO, the status of the TPO and the child support. So in this case, I will start because hold on one second. I think Mr. McMullen was the person. Did I put in the right case? Hold on one second. Did I put in the right case? Give me a second. I did. Okay. So this case, we were checking on the status. So I'll start with Mr. McMullen. Since you're the one that claimed there's a TPO, can you go ahead and unmute? Both of you, if you could raise your right hands for me. Do you swear any testimony you're about to present to the court will be the truth? If so, just nod and say, I do, please. Okay, you can unmute Mr. McMullen. All right. So what happened at the TPO hearing? I think he froze. Mr. McMullen? All right. Okay, you're there. Can you hear me? Looks like you're frozen.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, what happened at the hearing?
Is that better now?
Yes, it is. Okay, what happened?
We didn't, verdict hasn't been sent out to us just yet. They're supposed to be sent to us yesterday, but we didn't receive it. I didn't receive the verdict from the court yesterday.
Well, they usually don't give verdicts on TPO. So this in DeKalb County?
Yes, this is in DeKalb County.
Okay, give me a moment. I'll look up the case myself. Give me one moment.
Okay.
I've got it pulled up, Your Honor.
Okay, if you don't mind sharing this, what does it show? Do they have the final order?
I'm looking to see. No, there is not. There was 8/23. There was supposed to be a hearing, but then there was an amended petition filed, entry of appearance for someone. If I can see who that is.
So did you all have a hearing yesterday on the 23rd?
Yes, we did.
Okay, what was it? Let me find out. I can find out. I'll be with y'all.
It doesn't say anything. Apparently, there's no order issued yet.
Okay, give me one. You guys back in the waiting room because I can't proceed in this case without knowing the status from the judge. So as soon as I hear from her, I'll let you guys know. We'll put you back in the waiting room. Sorry about the delay.